Hey guys and girls, so a lot of people have been asking for biome support in the Infinite Terrain plugin, and while it's true that the Infinite Terrain plugin does not support biomes, it doesn't mean that it's impossible to have biomes. So I'm going to be showing you how to convert your local scripts to support biomes. So let's make a baseplate project, and we're going to use the Infinite Terrain plugin to create our local script, and we're going to save two terrain datas into the local script. So I have two terrain datas, one called grass, which is a simple one with two noises and a material of grass, and I have a terrain data with sand, which is another two noises with the material of sand. Now, if you open the terrain local script, you can see here we're looping through every child, and any child that is a module script, we're saving the child as a variable called data child. And if the child is not found, we simply exit the script. But if the child is found, we're requiring the child into this data variable. So instead of allowing the script to blindly find a module script which is inside of its child, we're going to manually set the data. So to do this, I'm going to delete the data child variable. I'm also going to delete the data child equals nil return line, and I'm also going to delete this entire part here where it sets the data child. And here now it's no longer able to see the data child variable, and it's given us an error. So now I'm going to hard code the location of the module. So I'm going to say script.grass. So now the grass module is being directly loaded into this data variable. I'm also going to do the same for the sand module. So I'm going to copy this line, and I'm going to change this from grass to sand, and I'm going to call this grass data and call this sand data. Now if we look down to line 26, we can see we have an error where it's no longer able to find the data variable, and what this line is doing is checking to see if there are any models inside of the data table. So if we look inside of the sand data table, we can see we have an empty models table. So that would return 0. And if there are no models, there's no need to create the folder terrain models that is placed into the workspace. So to fix this problem, I'm going to change data to grass data. And I'm also going to say or, and I'm going to also check to make sure there's no models in the sand data. So if either the grass data or the sand data has more than 0 models, we're going to create the folder. Now if we continue to scroll down to the getHeight function on line 69, we can see that we're getting errors because it's no longer able to find the data variable. But if we search for the getHeight function, we can see that it's only used 2 times. So it's used here and it's used here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply pass the data into the function. So I'm just going to say data like so, and here I'm going to add the data like so. And finally, let's fix the load function. So in order to fix the load function, at the very top, I'm just going to create a new local variable called data, and I'm going to say equals grass data. Now if I delete the base plate and move the spawn location higher and run the game, we can see that the whole world is just the grass data. Now, instead of just simply setting the data to grass data, what I'm going to do is say if x is less than 0, then, and I'm going to say data equals grass data. I need to define the data variable first, like so, and I'm going to say else data equals sand data. So if this x value is less than 0, it's going to be equal to grass data. If it's more than 0, it's going to be equal to sand data. So let's play the game. Now we can see that we have a hard line along 0 where the left side is grass and the right side is sand. Now let's smooth the edge of the two biomes so that they transition to one another smoothly. So in the getHeight function, just before we set the height data, what I'm going to do is create a new variable called scale, and it's going to equal x, but we want to get the absolute value of x. What that means is if x is a negative number, we want to convert it into a positive number. So to do this, we're going to say math.abs, and we're going to pass in x. I'm also going to divide it, or I could times it by a point value. So I'm going to times it by 0.01, and then I want to clamp this value to not go any higher than the value of 1, because I don't want to scale the height higher than a value of 1. So what I'm going to do is say math.min, and I'm going to pass in the value 1. So what this function is going to do is pick either this or this, depending on which one is lower. Now what I'm going to do is say height times equal scale. And if we run the game now, you can see that the terrains are now scaling down to 0 and then scaling back up to the height of the other biome. By adjusting this 0.01 value, you can adjust how quickly the terrain will slope down to 0 and back up to the noise value. Now currently the two biomes are split perfectly down a straight line, but we can add some noise to that line. So to do that, we can say local offset equals math.noise, and I'm going to pass in the z value, and I'm going to scale the z value down by 0.01, and I'm going to set a magnitude of the noise to 50. And now instead of checking if it's below 0, I'm going to check if it's below the offset. So let's play the game. And now you can see we have a curvy line, but the height is still smoothing to the center. So to fix this height scale variable, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the offset value into the getHeight function. So I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to retrieve the variable from here, and then here where we get the x value, I'm going to surround it with brackets, and I'm going to subtract x by the offset. So if we play the game now, now we can see that the scale is scaling to the correct area of the noise. You'll notice that we have these weird lines between two oceans, but where we don't have oceans, the boundary is okay, but where there are two oceans, we have this small little line. Now, the correct way of doing the boundary would be to get the height from both the left data and the right data and getting the average and tweening between the average of the two noises. But we're doing it a simple way by just simply scaling it down to 0. Now, a quick way to fix this little line would be to simply come into your terrain data, and if we set the water height to, let's say, 4, and the same for the sand data, set the water height to 4, and if we run the game again, now you can see that the areas that were creating thin lines have now gone away. Now let's increase the amount of biomes we have up to 4 biomes. So I'm going to copy 2 more terrain datas into my script. So now I have a lava and a snow, and then I'm going to add the 2 new modules to a variable here. So I'm going to say snow, lava, and I'm going to rename these to snow data and lava data. I'm also going to add these 2 new datas to the check here. So, like so. And now I'm going to scroll down to the load function once again, and I'm going to create a copy of this offset variable, and I'm going to call this one X offset, and I'm going to call this one Z offset, and I'm going to pass in the X value here instead. And now I'm going to check this against the X offset, and inside of here I'm going to do another check, and I'm going to check the Z against the Z offset. So I'm going to say this will equal grass, and this could equal snow. And then I'm going to do the same for the other side. So this could equal sand, and this can equal lava. Now we need to pass both the X and Z offsets into the get height function. So I'm going to replace this with X offset and add the Z offset. I'm also going to do the same here. And now I'm going to change this. So this is going to have X offset, and this is going to be called X scale. I'm going to make a copy, and we're going to change this to Z, Z, Z. Now, in order to pick which one to scale from, we're going to scale from the lowest of the 2. So what I'm going to do is say math.min, and I'm going to pass in X scale and Z scale. So what this is going to do is going to pick whichever one of these 2 is lower. So if we run the game now, and now you can see that we have 4 biomes, 1 sand biome, 1 lava biome, 1 snow biome, and 1 grass biome. And if you don't want the biomes to be split by water, we can change the for value to a value like -8. So let's go into all our terrain datas and set them to -8. And if we run the game now, now we can see that all the biomes are touching one another. Thanks for watching the video, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below.